Today on Locked On Rockies, much like the Rockies' namesake for their stadium, the Rockies' offense was as cold as, well, the Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 24th day of July in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, trying to navigate my mic not wanting to work with me, but we are still rocking and rolling here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel where you can be part of the show. You can let me know what's on your mind. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. When you like the videos, when you subscribe, when you check out the videos, you are helping the show grow, and I appreciate your support big time. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are also brought to you today by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's dive into the show today and give you a little preview of what we're going to talk about today. It's games like that where, I'm not like seething Matt, right? I'm not like, wah! I'm not completely shocked that the Red Sox were able to dominate the Rockies in that fashion. But my problem is when the Rockies, when they look bad, when they go cold, when they, and this there is a little bit, and I know we've harped on this, there is a little bit of baseball in there. There's 162 games. It's not going to work out well every single time. I understand that. But I'm also just, it's just a matter of another thing we've talked about a lot this year. Looking overmatched, looking out, just looking like you're not even in the same category. And that's just happened a lot for the Rockies. And it's happened at home too. I think something that if you are Rockies front office people or maybe you're a player, and it'd be interesting to maybe get insight into this. I just wonder if Coors Field necessarily has the same reputation anymore. People know Colorado. People will talk Colorado, and I really wish my mic. Let me just try to do one more thing here. But anyway, with the Rockies being in the situation that they've been in for the past couple of seasons, and now going on, what is it? This will be the 6th season since the playoffs, if my math is right, 5 or 6. So, has some of the muster or the threat of Coors Field worn off? And it's funny you say that I'm saying this because the game before literally proves the opposite, right? It's a guy that's had success. It's a young guy that just goes through his Coors Field baptism after striking out a bunch of people in other starts for him. But I do just wonder that because you've seen it with Rockies pitchers as well, and you've heard it from some of the prospects, and I know they're prospects, but it does really feel like the allure of Coors Field is changing on the players' side. Definitely not in the perspective of others. Definitely not in the perspective of media attention to it. And I'm sure it's still talked about, and they still talk about the threats, and they still talk about how games like Game 1 against the Red Sox can happen. But I think there's teams, and I think that the Rockies had, like Cal Quantrill takes this. It's I don't have to worry about the environment if I do my job. And I think a lot of pitchers feel confident in being able to do their job against the Rockies because their offense is so streaky, even with the improved offense that we've seen of late. Yes, we've seen good stuff from the Rockies offense. We've seen the long ball, but amidst this, right before that solid stretch, we've seen some moments where the Rockies can sputter on offense here before heating up. Before the stretch here against the Mets, Giants, and Red Sox here, before the offense started heating up a little bit, In 5 games, the Rockies scored one or fewer runs in 3 out of those 5 games. Now, the Rockies scored 6 in the other games, but it just goes to show you that we have seen moments where the Rockies not only don't score, but flat out, straight up don't score. I feel like we've heard that this is a high shutout season, and I got a stat here from Evan Lang here. 5 pitchers have thrown 7 or more shutout innings against the Rockies at Coors Field this season. This ties a franchise record. It's the end of July. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's the Rockies, right? It's the state of the Rockies and their offense mixed with, I really do think that there is a new confidence. There is a new layer of teams being able to come in here and say, I'm just going to miss bats. I'm just going to strike people out. I'm just going to get the job done that way. And that's what happened yesterday. I mean, the Rockies offense was lifeless for a good chunk of that. They had some opportunities. They did have some moments. Charlie Blackmon picking up a couple of hits, but and for the Rockies, a 7 strikeout day isn't their worst, but it just seemed like so many times it just has seemed like the Rockies look like they've never seen anything like that, like what the pitcher's throwing. But it is, this is one of those series where you do usher in the fact that it's like you play the Red Sox in one maybe 2 series a season. That rule's still new. You're not seeing a ton of these guys. It's a little bit different, sure, for the Rockies offense, especially when the Giants roll into town. And you've seen a bunch of those pitchers before. Why the Rockies did have some, a good chunk of the reason why you can say the Rockies got a read on Webb is because they've seen him like 15 times. And so that is a factor there. But it is just gets down. It is one of those things where it's just like, it's just kind of painful to watch. It's just one of those things where yesterday's game was just kind of one of those moments where again, it was just like, wow, the Rockies do just seem behind. And it was honestly bound to happen eventually. Like we said, this is a nice stretch in terms of the Rockies, especially of putting wins together there in that, when you're thinking about breaking things up, like they usually go on some pretty tough stretches in a row. So they got to avoid that. What the warning sign of this game kind of shows is when they do put up a stinker, it's kind of tough sledding for a little bit for the Rockies. It's something that they got to react and bounce back from, which they showed that they can do, because similar type of situation there, not so much in terms of success, but at least they're in winning games. The Brewers shut the Rockies out at home, and then the Rockies went on to win the finale and then played that good series against the Royals, taking 2 out of 3. So the team has responded before, but they've also, got shut out by the Reds and then put up 6, but gave up 12. So, this will be a moment where, again, the Rockies' ability to respond, bounce back, and especially quickly as well, with this being a day game and a getaway game here for the Rockies before they head out to the West Coast for a road trip series. And we'll see what the difference is in those 2 series as well. It'll be really interesting to see what happens to this Rockies offense when it goes to San Francisco, a place where it's notoriously difficult for the Rockies to play. Kind of can get a little bit of an idea and an understanding of how legit the improvements of the Rockies offense are, or if they're just kind of a 2-week hot streak for some of these players. So a challenge for the Rockies, to be sure. But, even amongst what was disappointing in that game from the offensive side, it is still a winnable series. And if you win that series, that's a great homestand. It's an awesome homestand where you get series wins, and you win. If you win today, you'll win 4 out of 6 games at home, and to start the second half of the season, which follows up your good series against the Mets, a series that you should have won if the bullpen didn't get in the way there in that first game. So a solid stretch for the Rockies can continue. But again, here's how it's a moment to respond. And it's going to be against, a Red Sox team that's also a little fired up still, too. It's the the umpiring and everything has kind of got emotions high here. I'm sure for both teams. I didn't see too much there in yesterday's game as compared to the first one, but there's plenty of firepower on this Red Sox team here, and the Rockies offense has to be ready to back up Cal Quantrill here, and we'll see what happens against Pivetta here. Pivetta, but who in his last 7 games has a 4.38 ERA in 7 starts, 39 innings, 19 earned runs, 12 walks, 245 strikeouts. So the strikeouts certainly something that we got to be watching out for, because struck out 10 against Miami, struck out 10 against Oakland, struck out 8 against the Dodgers. So at least 8 strikeouts here in the last 3 starts for the Red Sox starter in today's matchup. So that'll be a big test for the Rockies offense here coming up today. All right, let's talk about the returns to some of the offense. And let's talk about the lineup yesterday a little bit as well, coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Booking.com. Yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Why not plan a trip to Fenway Park and go see the East Coast? Maybe you want to go see a baseball stadium you've never seen before, or try to catch a game somewhere new. Maybe you want to go check out some minor league stadiums as well. Booking.com's got you covered all summer long, and, well, really anytime you need some travel accommodations there, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. Like we said before, maybe you want to go check out the Rockies rivals and go follow the Rockies on that road trip through California, and go check out San Francisco and Los Angeles or Anaheim, wherever technically the Angels are. Booking.com's got you covered. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. We are also brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They got you covered with all the action when it comes to daily fantasy, but it's a little bit different than when you might think about what fantasy sports are. So what you're going to do is you're going to fire up the PrizePicks app, and you're going to use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's going to get you a first deposit match up to $100. But all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Cal Quantrill strikeouts, Brenton Doyle stolen bases, Ezekiel Tovar hits, more or less. Look at the categories and you decide. Put your knowledge to the test. And it's not like someone's going to swoop up a player that you wanted to grab like waiver wire season in other fantasy sports. Well, no, you get the players you want, because it's not you against other people. It's you against the numbers. If you're looking for promotion, PrizePicks have you covered every week, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fee back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Folks, also Locked On Sports Today has got you covered for your 24/7 sports streaming channel. If you're looking for something maybe to have on while you're doing the daily grind, we got you covered here on Locked On. Check out that 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. And, of course, SiriusXM's got you covered all season long, free for you on the SiriusXM app and SiriusXM. And Danilo Piro's breaking down the games for you on the Locked On Rockies postcasts for you after the games. All right, some big returns to the lineup, and big names return to the lineup. Chris Bryant and Elias Diaz back in the lineup for the Colorado Rockies. And I'm trying not to be, because, look, Chris Bryant's got to play, right? Chris Bryant's got to factor in. But to be totally honest, if I'm being like legit real, and I said this on other shows, like to have Chris Bryant come back and you stick him in right field the first time, that seems crazy. It really does. I am shocked. Well, not really. I'm not really that shocked. I really am not. At the end of the day, with the Chris Bryant situation, we can't even ignore the fact that the Rockies are going to shoehorn him in there. It makes no sense that Sam Hilliard has a great game and then isn't playing the next day. That's absolutely ridiculous. The guy, when you that it's the unwritten, and I know it's happened to other players before and blah blah blah, but to be a player that is constantly looking for the moment to break out, constantly looking for consistency in the lineup, and then to have a massive moment for the Rockies, a key moment in the fact of a long ball amidst a stretch where Sam Hilliard, yeah, he's not blowing your socks off, but he's also like showing some pretty interesting stuff here in this second stint with the Rockies, and showing that there might be a little intrigue there. Like I said, he's not blowing your socks off, but in the last 7 games, or his last 18 at bats, really 278 average, a 350 OBP, a slugging of 500. He's walked twice. He's got 2 RBI. He's got the home run, and he's got a stolen base. And so I would just like to see him continue to play, and you're going to have to swallow the pill of this. Charlie Blackmon or Chris Bryant has to be benched. If you actually want to get the full development and actually see Sam Hilliard's 30, it's not like he's a young guy. I mean, this is a guy that might be settling into that, that role already. I understand that, but it's still a chance for him to break out and still kind of show things off a little bit more here in this stint. But when I see Chris Bryant get immediately slotted into right field, I hold my breath. Every single time the ball is going to be hit to Chris Bryant now in the outfield, I'm going to hold my breath. I don't have confidence in him staying healthy as an outfielder. He twisted and turned and lost a month. And so we're asking him to go out and play in one of the more difficult environments. I mean, it's right field, I know, of course, but it's still the Coors Field outfield. And then to go on the road. I mean, I was shocked to see that. I am not going to lie. Like I thought for sure it was going to be a DH type of thing. I mean, I guess it's a sign that Toglia is the first baseman, right? Like because if it makes more sense from the Rockies' perspective, I suppose, to have Toglia be the younger guy playing, or the not usual starter playing, versus Sam Hilliard. But here it is. It's back in full display. The Rockies are now going to have to find ways are going to do what they want to shoehorn both Bryant and Blackmon and Elias Diaz and all of these veteran players into the lineup here, when at this point of the season, and maybe it's just, we'll see what happens with the trade deadline for a couple of names. Elias Diaz coming, not missing too much time and hitting a double and stuff makes it, does make it interesting to see if he still might get moved. I don't think I feel like the injuries are going to pretty much soil that market, but still, it's like, and Aaron Shunk's playing. I can't remember what was up with Ryan McMahon. I missed what was up on the broadcast. Jammed finger. Okay. That's what's going on with Ryan McMahon. So I was like, why is Aaron Shunk playing so much consistently? But there you go. But look at this lineup, right? In terms of development for the Rockies, in terms of figuring out things for the Rockies: Blackmon, Tovar, Rogers, Doyle, Bryant, Diaz, Cave, Toglia, Shunk. You're only playing Toglia and Shunk in that because, at this point, Tovar, it's not much of a question. I mean, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm not really worried about Tovar's playing time. But to me, these type of lineups can't be happening at this point in the season. At this point in the season, the priority has to go to figuring out what you're going to do, especially with some of these players that you might move on from. I mean, again, what are the Rockies going to do with Montero? Like what are the Rockies going to do with Bouchard? What are the Rockies going to do with Hilliard? What are the Rockies going to do with XYZ? Because even with it being painful, the thing that was interesting to watch for the Rockies throughout this season has been the days where the young guys come up and surprise and perform, and especially perform against the good teams. It's frustrating when the team strikes out a billion times and all the other stuff too, absolutely. But at least you're kind of you're understanding that the team is under construction, like Bud Black says. But when you roll out this lineup, you're not working on anything. You're not developing anybody there outside of Tolia, getting at bats for Tolia and Shunk. So it's not that. Let me bite my tongue on that one. But it does. There's not enough room for Jake Cave, Chris Bryant, Charlie. Like, that can't be your outfield. Plain and simple. Obviously, none of them are going to start over Brenton Doyle, but to have Cave and Bryant be the corner pieces in the outfield, it's not going to lead the Rockies to a big winning streak that's going to propel them into a wild card thing. We'll have the fun Jake Cave moments. The Rockies will hope for the Chris Bryant experience to take off, but the fact of the matter is that lineup should never happen again for the Rockies unless injuries are the cause of it. Because it just gets in the way of what the goal should be at this point of the season, which is getting an idea and getting an understanding for what you want to do with some of these young guys as you go towards the trade deadline and towards the future, and figuring out what you're going to do with some of these veteran players as well. So yes, while this might have been the Red Sox or the rest of the world, check out Jake Cave and Elias Diaz in this game, because they ain't trading Charlie Blackmon. We know they're not trading Ryan McMahon, and I don't know if Brendan Rodgers is going to get traded if he can't stop hitting the ball on the ground. When I see Sam Hilliard not rewarded for good play, and when I see this roster again, I do get frustrated. Because even in a loss, I mean, and again, it's a lot. The Rockies offense did do nothing yesterday. A couple of base hits there, a couple of knocks, sure. But it's bad it's bad when you turn to the Rockies veteran core and veteran players and they get blanked 6-0 at home. Not a good look either. Let's talk about the pitching depth as well for the Rockies here to wind down the show and get you ready for today's game. Day game today, so be on the lookout for that. Let's do that coming up on segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Game Time. Game Time's got you covered all baseball season long. They are an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So maybe you're on the fence. Maybe you're not sure. Maybe you're doing some traveling and you realize that the hometown team is there. Maybe you're in Colorado. Maybe you're not a Colorado Rockies fan. Well, you are a Colorado Rockies fan, but you don't live in Colorado. There's the way to say it. And you're visiting and you want to check out Coors Field? Well, Game Time's got you covered. They got all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Yes, you get the views from the seat, my favorite thing. You know exactly where you're sitting before you buy, and you can toggle the all-in pricing that shows you up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are your daily Colorado Rockies podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And speaking of YouTube, you can go check out Locked On Sports Today. Get 24/7 sports coverage from around the leagues. Yes, all the big leagues we talk about here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And you can catch all your Rockies play-by-play action on the SiriusXM app and SiriusXM. All right. One thing that we noticed, and the big bummer about German Marquez going back to the IL, it kind of highlights the issue again of the kind of the drop off, the issue, the depth of the lack of depth for pitching for the Rockies. It was tough sledding for Ty Blach, to say the least there. And Anthony Molina walks 4. Not really a pretty day for anyone on a Rockies pitcher outside of Noah Davis. Anthony Molina didn't let anything up. So you know what? At least with the 4 walks, avoids the damage, picks up a couple of strikeouts. And between Molina and Davis, they don't allow any runs. So shout outs to that, at least keeping it the damage away, navigating some situations there as well if you are Molina. However, man, it's like it just goes to show how much depth the Rockies don't have, the lack of depth the Rockies have at pitching. It is just, I mean, Ty Blach is a fine middle relief guy. I mean, honestly, he's a fine long relief guy. He can do some stuff, but it's just like it's just a shelling. I mean, it's sometimes it's when the Rockies rely on their depth, it doesn't go very well. When unfortunately the rotation not being dominant to start, and then to get to this point again where you gotta have Ty Blach do a start in the middle, it's just underwhelming, but I don't want to harp too much on, because he hasn't started. He hasn't gone anywhere close to starting a game for the Rockies in a long time this season. But that was a tough one. And it was tough because it's just like, it was such a bummer, man. It was so looking forward to watching German pitch again, man. And I really did think that him coming back was something that was game changing enough that it wasn't going to really, really change everything for the Rockies. Like it's not going to completely change the outlook of the season for them. But man, my mic is just betraying me today. But it really adds some intrigue. German Marquez just adds a layer of success, of good pitching that the Rockies just don't have. I don't know. Success is just kind of a weird word to use there, especially when it has been mixed. But he just brings such a different energy to the pitcher's mound for the Rockies that has just been sorely missing for so long. So to kind of be like, oh yeah, like, okay, here we go. At least German's back and we'll see how it goes. But just to have that possibility of a great German game. Now we have to wait a little longer. Now we have to sit there with the worry of our worry of the health as well. I know it's the injury isn't in the same area as the Tommy John, but you always worry about arm inflation of any kind when you're talking about a pitcher. So as much as the Rockies, got to work on the offense too, like we've talked a lot about and been a big focus on for us here on the pod of late. That games like yesterday are a reminder of just how much you need pitching depth, how much any team. I mean, the Rockies are not alone in dealing with this situation with dealing with a lack of pitching depth and situations like that. The Red Sox fans were holding their breath there yesterday too with Devers. I mean, I know it's not a pitcher, but the injury bug certainly has hit people and hit certain teams very, very hard. So it'll be interesting to see if the Rockies can build on this pitching depth or what the Rockies really feel like they can deal from their pitching as they approach the trade deadline as well. Is a game like yesterday a reminder that and German going back to the IL, a thing where it kind of puts the stop on trying to trade Cal Quantrill? That might be something that's being raised within the Rockies organization right now, is they're thinking that they might need Cal for the depth and for the actual starters more than they thought before German was back on the IL. So we'll see what happens. Red Sox Rockies, they're going to finish up this series in a day game today, so be sure to keep that on your radar for your afternoon. See if the Rockies can get a back-to-back series wins and finish up a real good, solid homestand, and hopefully the offense bounces back. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Or if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.